in the ticket. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of an introduction. I know it has been quite a week, I have to say. Yep. Like all of you, I wear a lot of different hats, or in my case, a lot of different shoes. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, a friend, a retired military spouse. And right now, I'm the First Lady of Minnesota. But for much of my life, I've been a teacher. I think you might have answered it, but I'm asking it anyway. Are there any teachers here today? I would just like to say thank you for your work. Yep. Sincerely. Yes! Now, that's how Tim and I first met. We were both teaching in Nebraska. Yep. He taught social studies, you might know that, and I taught English. In fact, two of my former English colleagues are right here with us today, up in that box. Now, Tim and I even shared a classroom. It was the old choir room, and in the school, they were short on rooms, so they just put a divider right down the middle. And it was thin. So his class was always just a little louder and a little more boisterous. That's right, isn't it, Aubrey? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. There was just so much energy in that classroom. But what I knew is that Tim and I shared a belief that education can be transformative. And we saw it firsthand, and we still see it firsthand. There was a student named Waylon, and Waylon was a football player on the team Tim coached and a student in my English classroom. Guess where he'd rather be? That's my story. He was brilliant on the football team, but difficult in my classroom. I soon learned that Waylon was reading way below grade level, and he was acting out. And that was actually an attempt to hide that from his peers and from me. So I asked Coach Walz to huddle with me and make a plan. We asked Waylon to stop by my classroom for a few minutes. And I told him that a student who was failing a core class could not participate in school, or in football. That was a school rule. And I had a plan, and Coach Walz was on board. And Waylon said, okay, what is it? And I said, Waylon, if you would come in for tutoring several times a week, before school, lunch, whenever we could make it work, you can keep playing football, but you have to come to tutoring and you have to make progress. He agreed and he worked hard. I started seeing some of that hard work from the football field in my classroom. Waylon's reading began to improve, and he continued the tutoring even after the season ended. We never discussed it, though we just kept reading. And Tim would often cross that thin divider in our classroom to read with Waylon and to cheer him on. And at the end of the year, Waylon had confidence in himself, both on and off the field. He graduated from high school, and educators, you know what that feels like. You know what that feels like. It is what we live for. And he had a shot to succeed. He had a chance. One of the things I love most about Tim is that he believes so strongly that every student, every child deserves a chance to get ahead. That's what teachers know, and that's what we know in schools today. We have some former students here today who experienced this. It's a commitment that I know Vice President Harris shares, and it is a vision that they will fight for every single day in the White House. So as we, you and I and Aubrey and Nebraska, Congressional District 2, as we build the future for our children, let's be proud of that and let's take pride in our work. Now, you might not know my mom, but I bet you kind of know my mom. And she used to say to me, Gwen, do the work that is in front of you. And when I was in 6th grade, or about that time, I thought that meant the dishes. But I learned that wasn't exactly what it meant. It's advice that is both thoughtful and actionable. So I'm asking you here today, Nebraska, to join me in doing the work that is in front of us. Yeah. Will you? Let's do that work in front of us. Let's volunteer. Let's door knock. Let's sign up. Let's bring volunteers together. Bring a friend. Donate. Talk to people in parking lots. Make the phone calls. Bake brownies for those who are making the phone calls. Drive people where they need to go. Let's do whatever needs to be done. Let's watch that work in front of us that our country needs, that Nebraska needs, that we need. And together, we are going to win this thing. Let's win this. Now it's my honor to introduce someone very special, someone who spent time on both sides of that divider in our classrooms. Aubrey Herman Faustman had Mr. Walz for geography and me for English. Right? Yes. Checking. She was a standout student, of course, and she was on the cheer team. So she, along with all of my speech kids, was wanted, right, speech kids? Where are you? Yeah. She was one of the few who could call me Coach Walz. Yeah. We're so delighted that you're all here today, and especially that she's here with us today. So let's give a warm Nebraska welcome, like you know how to do, to Aubrey Faustman. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, First Lady Walz. Hey, Nebraska! As you heard, my name is Aubrey, and it's such an honor to be here today to welcome Governor Walz back home to Nebraska. Or Mr. Walz, as I used to call him when he was my high school geography teacher. Now, Mrs. Walz, she was my high school English teacher, cheer coach. She helped me raise that pesky ACT score, and she was also my speech and debate coach, which I think is part of the reason I'm able to stand here right now and talk to all of you. As a teacher, Mr. Walz really challenged us as his students. He was incredibly supportive, understanding with all of us. His humor and excitement kept us engaged. That same energy and enthusiasm you're seeing right now from him out on the campaign trail is exactly how he was with us in the classroom almost every day. Mr. Walz has a great sense of humor. He's just a common sense, voice of reason, steady guide. And I think that's exactly what we need right now. I remember that feeling when you would walk into his classroom. It didn't really matter what had happened earlier on in the day, if you'd had a good day, a bad day. You walked into his room and you immediately felt comfortable. He put you at ease, you could focus, you could learn, and we probably laughed a lot too. The first thing I said to my husband when Governor Walz was announced as Vice President Harris's running mate was, I cannot wait for the rest of the country to get to know this guy. Because what they're going to see is just a good, decent human being who's committed to giving back to his community. He served our country honorably as a veteran in the National Guard. He's never forgotten his small-town roots and has advocated for working families while being in Congress. As governor, he's cut taxes and lowered health care costs. Yes. He's an advocate for women's reproductive rights. And he has given hope to so many who want to grow their own families. He's still the same champion and coach for the countless of students like me whose lives he touched. Mr. and Mrs. Walz are good people who've committed their lives to giving back to their communities. We see that now with the incredible job he's done as the governor of Minnesota, where he has an impressive record of delivering for middle-class families like the one he grew up in. He signed the largest tax cut in state history, passed the largest infrastructure bill in Minnesota history, and with bipartisan support, he cut insulin costs to $35 a month to many Minnesotans. And as a father whose daughter was born thanks to fertility treatments, he knows how critical reproductive health care is. Which is why he made Minnesota the first state to pass a law codifying abortion rights after Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade. Governor Walz is fighting for the future. He couldn't be more different than Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and who are only focused to dragging us into the past. He's the perfect partner for Vice President Kamala Harris, and they are ready to take Donald Trump and beat him once and for all. Now it's on all of us to put in the work to send Vice President Harris and Governor Walz to the White House. So let's get to work. And with that, please join me in welcoming the next Vice President of the United States, Gwen Walz.
Oh, yeah. From that on, yeah. Thank you. Wow. Well, hello, Nebraska. So, thank you. There's nothing as a teacher that makes you prouder than to see the success of one of your former students and to have Aubrey here. So thank you, Aubrey. And can I just say, Nebraska, my God, Jade Dorsey's voice, holy smokes. I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but maybe she will need to do something in January, too. So. Wow. Wow. Special thank you to somebody who's been a friend of mine for a long time, who does the hard work to make these types of things happen, the Nebraska Democratic Party Chair, Jane Clabb. And her husband, Scott, who's along for the ride. So, Jane, so incredible. Look, it's incredible. You saw it here. It's great. Someone I've gotten an opportunity to know, the person who's going to be your congressman come January, Tony Vargas. So. Yeah. And anybody willing to put themselves out there and run, I have to tell you, take a hard look at Preston Love. We need somebody who's listening to you. Take a hard look. Take a hard look. Well, I have to admit, it feels pretty good to be back home. So you might have seen, yeah, things got pretty exciting for me over the last 10 days, but not just for me. If you didn't notice, a few people showed up in Philly last week. And then about 12,000 showed up, many thousands walking for miles in the heat to a field in western Wisconsin. Then at that time, the largest rally of the campaign showed up in Detroit, Michigan. Donald Trump said it was AI. You know what won't be AI? Their ballots come November will not be AI. Went on to Arizona to have the largest rally that we're told, the largest rally in Arizona history was there. And then get this, in Nevada, it was 109 degrees. 12,000 people showed up for that event. 4,000 people waited in line. 4,000 people waited in line. That state organizer named Shelby, they didn't just show up at a rally like this. 5,000 of them signed up to door knock, to phone bank, and to do the work. Now Shelby ended up going to urgent care to get an IV because it was 109 degrees out. She knows what this is about. She knows what's at stake. Look, those tens of thousands across this country showed up for the very same reason that you took. You could have been anywhere on a beautiful Nebraska Saturday in late summer, but you chose to be here. For the most beautiful and simple reason: you love this country. Look, I know firsthand about this place. The people in this state are decent people who show kindness, who show generosity. And you know what I also know about this state? Nebraskans don't fear the future. You make the future. And I know it personally. I was born in West Point. I went to elementary school in Valentine, and I graduated from a town of 400 named Butte. I had 24 classmates. Some of them are here today. Folks from that town. And I just want to say this. I don't know what their politics are, but I've known their friendship. I've known their kindness. And when our family was down on the luck, they were there for us. I hope I've done the same for them. I wouldn't trade growing up in that town for anything in the world. Spent my summers with them, working on the farms. I graduated from Chadron State College. For folks outside of Nebraska, you usually refer to it as Yale of the Midwest. And I taught school in Alliance. Now here I have to be a little careful. I grew up, as all of you, bleeding Nebraska red and true blue Husker fan. But now I'm the governor of Gopher Nation. So I know. Look, I'm gonna play it safe. Go Mankato West Scarlets. Never close the yearbook. Never close the yearbook. Look, my mom and dad and those people I grew up with, they taught me some things in those communities. Show generosity towards your neighbor. Work for a common good. They also taught us, and this is for all the people outside of Nebraska, they taught us that chili and cinnamon rolls is the most... That is the most perfect culinary combination in the country. Look, right now, I couldn't be prouder to be on this ticket to help make Kamala Harris the next president of the United States. I'm taking these guys with me everywhere we go. Look, you've heard the vice president say this. She said, only in America could a woman from Oakland, California, who worked shifts at the local McDonald's while she got her degree, be our nominee for president of the United States. When I heard the McDonald's story about that she's worked at McDonald's, like so many of us growing up, took jobs to get by. The funny thing to me is, can you picture Donald Trump working the McFlurry machine? Oh, he knows us. He knows us. He couldn't work the McFlurry machine. Many of you in here did. But I have to tell you, from her first day as a prosecutor, and then as a district attorney, and then as the Attorney General of the state of California, a United States Senator, and our Vice President, Kamala Harris has been on your side fighting for you every step of the way. She's the one who took on the predators and the fraudsters. She's the one that took on the transnational gangs. She's the one who stood up against corporate greed. And she never hesitated to work across the aisle if it was right for the American people. For all the things she's done over the last 10 days, I have to tell you one of the things I'm most grateful for. She has brought the joy out in this country. Smile. As the First Lady said, you can do the work in front of you, and hard work is good work, but you can do it joyfully. You can do it with decency. You can do it with kindness. And my community, this state, taught me a little something about a shared commitment. My dad served in the Army during the Korean War. With his encouragement, 2 days after I turned 17, I went and raised my hand and joined the Nebraska Army National Guard. I had the privilege of wearing this nation's uniform for 24 years. Okay. Thank you all. And I'll tell you, the Guard gave me a lot. The Guard gave me purpose. It gave me the strength of a shared commitment, something bigger and greater than just ourselves. And just as it did for my dad and millions of others, it gave me the GI Bill and a shot at a college education. My dad was a teacher. Both my brothers and my sister were teachers. 3 out of 4 of us married teachers. My wife's parents are teachers. 3 of 4 of her siblings are teachers. Thank you all. For 20 years, I had the privilege of teaching in our public schools, teaching high school social studies and coaching football. To a state championship, too, so. But it was my students and my players who really inspired me to run for office. They saw in me what I was hoping to instill in them, a commitment to the common good, and a belief that one person truly can make a difference, each and every one of us. So in 2006, 42-year-old with little kids teaching, I took a leap and ran for Congress. I didn't know it at the time, but in that district that I ran in, there had been one other Democrat since 1892. But even though that district was red, my neighbors graced me with the opportunities to represent them in the United States House of Representatives. And for 12 years, I worked bipartisanly on issues like Veterans Affairs, like agriculture and farm bills, and growing rural economies. I learned how to compromise without compromising my values. As governor of the great state of Minnesota, I took all those experience and skills to tackling some of the most difficult challenges that our state faces. But more than anything else, just like here in Nebraska, Minnesota's strength comes from our values. Values of working together, seeing past differences, and always be willing to be a neighbor to lend a helping hand. Those are the values I learned out in Valentine. Those are the values that I learned out in Butte. Those are the values I learned with these people who are here, that I tried to instill in my students, that I took to the United States Capitol and took to our state capitol. Now it's time for Vice President Harris and I, as we're running on these values, let's take them to the White House. Let's take them to the White House. It's time. It's time. Yesterday, Vice President Harris rolled out a plan to start building an opportunity economy during our first 100 days in office. Cutting taxes, not for the billionaires, but for the folks in this room in the middle class. Taking on those who will price gouge at the grocery stores and other stores. Lowering the cost of rent and the opportunity to own your own home. Continuing to cut the costs of prescription drugs that we all depend on. And just like we did in Minnesota, relieving medical debt that straps millions of people. Now look, we're positive, but I think we all know Donald Trump sees the world a little differently. You think he would understand the importance of Carhenge as a historical relic? The British made a replica of it out of stone. It's so important, so just so we know. Or do you think he would know the joy of tubing and swimming the Niobrara as we do in the summer? And this one's for the gray hairs in this room. You think that guy could understand the pure joy of pre-gaming at sidetracks before a Husker Sooner game? All I can say about that, too, is I'm glad there weren't video cameras around at the time. So we've been there. Look, in Nebraska, you got a slogan here. Nebraska, it's not for everyone. Well, it sure ain't for Donald Trump, I'll tell you that. This guy is the opposite of everything here. Every opportunity he has, he weakens our country to strengthen his own hand. He mocks our laws. He sows chaos and division amongst us. And that's not even counting the time he was president. So look, I want to be clear because I know where I'm at and I know my family. Many of you can probably remember when Republicans talked about freedom, they meant it. They would have never turned their back on our allies. The traditional Republican Party before Donald Trump contributed much to this state and this great nation. But he's not that. Today, when they talk about freedom, they mean the government should be free to invade your exam room. Or that corporations should be free to pollute the air and water. Banks should be free to take advantage of the least fortunate. Look, in Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices. Here in Nebraska, it's the same way. We might not make those choices for ourselves, but we live by the golden rule. And that golden rule is mind your own damn business. Mind your own damn business. Look, I know this state. I know this state, the kindness, generosity. I also know there's a libertarian bent. You don't need government to tell you about your health care. You don't need government to pick your books out that you can read. Look, folks, this becomes really personal. And for me, this idea about the health care decisions we make and the choices about our family, that's your family. You don't need me, you don't need Donald Trump, you don't need anyone in government telling you about your family. But that's exactly what they're doing. That is exactly what they're doing. If you're an old school libertarian Republican Nebraskan, this is the ticket for you. This is the ticket for you. When my wife and I decided we want to have kids, we spent years in fertility treatments. And for those of you, you may not have done it yourself, but I guarantee you know somebody who's been through this. And you know the nightmare of waiting for the calls after the treatment, praying that it comes out right, and then that pit in your stomach and that blackness that comes over you when once again it failed. And year after year, you're trying to just have that child. So you better be sure to know it wasn't by chance. When we finally got the news that we were pregnant, and when our first child, our daughter, was born, we named her Hope. We named her Hope. So when this ticket talks about freedom, we mean the freedom to make your own healthcare decisions. Make them yourself. And we mean that your children should be free to go to school without worrying about being shot dead in their classroom. Freedom is when education is a ticket to the middle class, not crippling student loan debt. Freedom, where the air is clean, the water is pure, and your communities are safe. And the freedom to settle our political differences, not by violence, but at the ballot box in November. That's what this is about. That's how simple this is. What direction are we going to go in? Donald Trump, he wants to take us backwards to a time where people didn't have that voice. We're not going back. We're not going back. And look, when he tries to play dumb about this 2025 plan, I coach football for enough years. When somebody takes the time to draw up a playbook, they plan on using it. He knows what this will do: restrict our freedoms, rig the economy for the ultra-rich by punishing the middle class. If he returns to the White House, he's going to pick up just where he left off. But the people around him who worked with him the first time are already telling us it will be much, much worse. Raising costs on you while making it easier for billionaires. Repealing the Affordable Care Act so we can go back to pre-existing conditions and making it impossible to get health care. And they're very clear about this. They're very clear. Gut Social Security and Medicare for those tax cuts for the wealthy, and ban abortion across this country. We know in this room abortion is health care, and again, that's your decision to make. That's your decision to make. And look, they're super concerned with our bedrooms. They're super concerned with our exam rooms. They're super concerned about our libraries. And I have to tell you, yeah, when they make decisions about your health care, yes, it's weird, but it's worse than that. It's dangerous. When they try and cut Social Security for our seniors like my mom who've earned it, that's not just weird, it's cruel. And when they try, which they did and will again, when they try to overturn fair elections, that's not just weird, that's un-American. That is un-American. And this idea about knowing us, let me ask you something on this. Do you think J.D. Vance knows one damn thing about Nebraska? He's going to be here next week. You think he's ever had a runza? You think he's ever had a runza? That guy would call it a hot pocket. You know it. Every one of you in here know it. A damn hot pocket. Now look, he wrote a memoir at the ripe old age of 31. And he claimed to be an expert on middle America. All the while trashing and denigrating the very community he was raised in. Look, folks, in the heartland and in Nebraska and in Minnesota, we don't need a Yale-educated philosophy major backed by billionaire venture capitalists to tell us who we are. We know who we are. We know who our neighbors are. So I don't know about all of you. It's time to put these guys in the rearview mirror. Let's end this. It's time to put them in there. Say it with me. You know it's true. We are not going back to that. We are not going back to that. We're not going back. So look, over the next 80 days, Vice President Harris and I will be across this country. Tomorrow, I'll be up working Western Pennsylvania. And I guarantee you, Western Pennsylvania knows a little about football and they know a little about neighborliness too up there. So we got 80 days, people. That's easy. And as I've been saying, I'm going to ask you this. 80 days, work hard. We can sleep when we're dead. We can sleep when we're dead. Not now. Not now. We can do this. We need each and every one of you. We do nothing alone. We need you on the team. On November 5th, I want to be at the end of that day when the ballots close across this country. I want to know, and you want to know, we left it all on the field. We left it all on the field. Leave it on the field. Because each and every one of you believe exactly what Kamala Harris believes. We believe in the promise of America. We just have to fight. We just have to fight for it. Because as the next president of the United States says, she says it often, when we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. When we fight, we win. Thank you, Nebraska. Let's go.